In this episode, I have special guest Radim Zenkl here, the Czech mandolin player who is also got a big reputation and career both in the Europe but also in the States. So it's a very nice guest we have today, and we're going to talk about his background, of course, but also a little bit about developing your own style in your mandolin playing. And we're also going to have a close look at Radim's special mandolin technique. It almost sounds like two mandolin played at the same times. It's called the Zenkl style. So here we go. Hey there, music makers. I'm Magnus and welcome to the Mandolin Secrets podcast. This is the place to get tips, inspiration, and stories that supports you on your musical journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and just know you can go to mandolinsecrets.com/podcast for more information on how to keep up with the show and also find all previous episodes. Now, let's get this episode rolling. All right, we are here. It's the middle of the summer, Sweden at Torsåker Bluegrass Festival, making a podcast episode, and I got a special guest with me today, Radim Zenkl, the great Czech mandolin player, who, well, and to me, you are a bit unique in that way because you have a very big reputation and a career both in Europe and as well as in the States. And Radim, first of all, how are you doing? And would you mind telling us what you've been doing this day so far?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. Well, today we were at the last day of the festival, the Torsåker Festival. Me and my musical partner Ondra Kozák, we played a set at a church, and sometimes, these things. Me and Ondra, we played like at a church in Norway sometimes ago, or I remember playing in Finland in a church, and it was basically like a concert. But today was really special because it was at an evangelical church, and we were part of the service. So we get to experience the whole atmosphere, but nevertheless we got to play a lot. We got to play 10 selections, plus to also accompany the pianist for the gospel singing.
Yeah. So
we had a fantastic time. It was a great community, and of course playing in a church, it's a kind of reward by itself. Beautiful surroundings, beautiful sound. Beautiful sort of spatial reverb. So I'm psyched. It was great.
It was an amazing kind of concert and ceremony, and even I think we could really feel how this the priest here were really feeling it's a special moment, because I don't believe in Torsåker Church it's once a year that the house is full like this, so full of the festival participants and audience. So even the songs that we did all together, it was really filled with this powerful bluegrass voice. It was amazing. But such a beautiful concert, and I think your music is filled with so much spirit. So I could really see why they put you in there for the show. But yes, you are here mainly because you are an amazing mandolin player. My first experience with you goes 20 years back when I first got in contact with you. And just quickly for the listeners, can you, when did your mandolin journey start, sort of?
I guess sort of my musical journey was such that at my second grade, I played some piano at a music school, but didn't get too far. I guess I couldn't really connect to the music or these exercises of that time. These days, I think the piano is taught differently, so it's more, I guess, more engaging for the young kids. So, but nevertheless, that was the beginning. Then I later on at the fourth grade, I joined a choir, singing choir, and that was more fun. I could really relate to the music. And there I met a friend who was a couple of years older, and he played guitar. And there was a direct inspiration, so I was basically copying him, learning from him. And so by the age of 12, I was working on a guitar.
Yeah.
But then there were quite a few guitar players in our sort of area, and I thought it would be nice to have a different instrument so we could play like in a band or things together. So he switched to bass and then banjo, and I thought, well, what about mandolin? I didn't really know much about it. I just remember seeing it at the window of a music store, and even remember this moment. I was like, wow, this is a weird instrument. I played the guitar, but little did I know that sometime later it's going to change. And I was also a member of a sort of a Boy Scout troop, and we would go, to the nature camping, and one of our leaders brought a mandolin for one of the outings. And I liked it. I was able to try it, and it's as you know, it's very similar to the guitar technique-wise, and it's a cool tone, and it's a small.
It's good for hiking also. Easy to carry.
Exactly, the size for traveling. So I got hooked. So those two things together. So then I asked my father that, I told him that, I'd like to get a mandolin, and he approved. He was a classical music teacher, and he bought me a mandolin, and then I was just kind of figuring things on my own, basically playing melodies, and yes.
Sorry for interrupting. So you also mentioned your father was a music teacher, even.
Yes, he's a teacher of basically music education and music theory, especially intonation. That was his specialty.
Wow!
But coming from the classical perspective, it was interesting. He told me, well, on the mandolin you don't really, play chords much. As we know, it's not the case. And those days the mandolin was not taught in any school in the Czech Republic or former Czechoslovakia. So I had to, figure things out on my own. But that made it more interesting to me right away. So, finding the sounds for the chords, and getting used to the sound of the chord, which is basically octave higher than a guitar. So it, it really took some getting used to. And so I was playing some sort of folk music, and later on, I think I was about 16. Or 15 or 16, I heard some Czech bands playing bluegrass, and they had a mandolin.
Yeah.
And until then, I would be playing kind of simple stuff like. Right.
Yeah.
And then in bluegrass. Wow, the 16 notes, this is so cool.
That's cool.
And so I got hooked, and I said, well, it's played on a mandolin. I have a mandolin. I gotta work on it, and I was inspired, and so that's how it started.
Yeah, and I also just hearing this story, I think what comes to my mind, because you telling me that you had to figure it out on your own a little bit.
Yes,
that seems like a common theme for your way of approaching music. Just seeing two concerts here, you played a variety of instruments, not only the mandolin family, but also like wind instruments, flutes, and it seems like you have a very personal way of playing all these instruments, and so I guess like innovation and creativity is a big part of your expression and the reason maybe for playing music.
I think it is, yeah. But it wasn't like that I would like sit down and say, okay, I'm going to be an innovator.
No.
It sort of happened. I think it came naturally, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And also, in a way, it's sort of trying to seek out the what's called the less traveled path. If there is something that everybody plays, that of course I would learn it as part of the learning the routine, but then I would rather be interested in something which is less common, something more curious, and see to in US there's a sort of a saying, find a hole and fill it, meaning like find that there's a space to do something. So so I guess in that case there was that motivation to work on things. And then once you started working on these things, kept coming to me some ideas what can be done, and not being really attached too much to one particular tradition or style of playing, or being just, I guess, being more free is a big part of it too.
Yeah, and you're touching upon something that I wanted to discuss, on like specific style and all that, because that's really something I try to share with this community of players. We have many players in this community, played for a couple of years maybe, and I try, because I truly have my own belief that I think everyone has their own personality to add to the music.
Yes.
And there is already Sierra Hull, a Chris Steele, there's David Grisman. So, of course, we want to study those masters, but also don't be afraid of just like finding our own personality and our style in the music.
Yes.
And I met few mandolin players that have such a unique style as you have. So would you agree on this? Do you also?
Absolutely. And just recently I spoke to a Czech singer-songwriter, Vlasta Redl, who kind of affirmed that, he told me, in general, like every person has something unique of their own, which the others do not have. And that's the beauty of art. I said, gosh, that's so true.
Yeah. And I think also, you have, because I don't know your, like, the love and the interest of both European root music and, of course, bluegrass music, and your way of mixing those two. And I even know you lived in both these countries. How did that affect your music, like living in the States and all that?
Yeah, very much so. It's sort of a interesting art in a way that I was really first inspired by the American music. I would play some folk songs, but many of the folk songs were also from United States with the Czech lyrics. Some Czech bands would play that, and that was before bluegrass. More sort of a country or Bob Dylan, or so those songs were popular in Czechoslovakia with Czech version of the lyrics, sometimes translation, sometimes slightly different story or more loose translation, but it's a great music. So that was what I got hooked on, playing the guitar and singing these type of songs, or Czech songs written in that style.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, bluegrass was a big thing. And I was kind of lucky that my first bluegrass band, which I joined when I was just when I turned 18, actually played traditional bluegrass. They played Monroe and Stanley Brothers. And so it was great to study the roots,
Yeah.
And then eventually, after a couple of years of playing with them, I started my own band, and we were young, and so we were following more progressive bands first, like Seldom Seen and Osborne Brothers, and later on, Skyline and Newgrass Revival. And then we reformed the band a little bit more and started writing our own music in sort of that style, but also in just like the Newgrass Revival, influenced by reggae a little bit, by pop, but rock and. So it was cool, and so it was still bluegrass. And then, of course, by listening to those LPs from overseas, as a mandolinist, of course, early on I was aware of David Grisman and Jethro Burns and Andy Statman, all these great mandolin players who went sort of beyond bluegrass, or and I loved it as well, the acoustic jazz, and so that was really cool, the new acoustic music and such. And then I moved to United States in the summer of '89. I was 23, and I was ready to fly out, to the world. For a long time, I was planning to go to the West. I think since I was 13. Because I lived in a communist country, and you discover at certain age that things are not what they seem to be, and that there is some limited freedoms, and that people do escape to the West. So first I thought I'll go to Canada. That country had a sort of a good like a peaceful reputation even
Still
back then, and that's to me it's bizarre now. Think about it. Certainly this was long time before the internet. How did I know? How did I know that? Somehow I knew. From just talking to people or reading newspaper or books or watching movies. Canada was like the place. United States I was kind of afraid of. Could be also part of the propaganda was that they would always if each time there was some story about a crime or so, they really magnified it in the Czech media, so we were afraid to go. But then when I got more interested in bluegrass, I discovered that the musical scene is much bigger in the States than in Canada. So then I said, okay, I'll have to change my plan.
And I guess that would be very good, like a door opener for you to the whole, like the American society to be so well rooted in their music.
It's a good hub, and of course I regularly play in Canada. I love going there, so it's all connected. So that's the first part. The second part of the story is that once I was in America, people would tell me just, okay, Radim, well you're a Czech and you play mandolin, play us a Czech piece. And I said, what? I came here to play bluegrass and swing and blues. And I said, well, I know the music, I've learned it at school, I've learned it from parents, but I never really played it on a mandolin. No. So that started and sort of some interest and, sparked an idea. And truly, after about 2-3 years living in the States, I started to miss the traditional music a little bit. Yeah. And discovered that it's actually really deep, because while I lived in the Czech Republic, I didn't think too much about the Czech traditional music. So, that's been always there. It's something old. It's I was a teenager. That's that music. But then in the States, I said, oh my gosh, it's like a treasure. Yeah. So I started playing. And that music, and my second CD for acoustic disc it's called Check It Out, but it features some Czech traditional music and Slovak music, and also my own music in that style, the style of Eastern Europe and stuff. And and I love it, and I feel very connected to who I am if I perform some of those pieces at the concerts. And later on, after about 20 years of playing the mandolin, I picked up the flute. It started with the Irish tin whistle. I think in '99 I went to Ireland for the first time, and just for the heck of it, I bought an Irish tin whistle, or the so-called the penny whistle. Yeah, and it's a simple instrument, so you can get melodies pretty quickly. But I really got inspired by the tone, and mainly by the sustain. Because mandolin, it's a plucked instrument. It rings and then it's gone unless you play tremolo. But to have the sustain, to experience the duration of the sustained tone and working with the breath, it really hooked me. So for a while I wasn't sure. I almost felt guilty. It's like, Jesus, what am I doing? Here I am. I'm a mandolin player. I shouldn't do that. But it feels so good. It was almost like the forbidden fruit kind of thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that feeling that you get stuck in your identity, and are you then allowed to do other things? Sort of. I haven't felt that so much with different instruments, but I can feel it with playing different genres of music. Yeah. Well, I'm like I'm a folk player. Should I also do classical? I shouldn't do this. I should focus on, getting the conflicts of your thoughts like that.
Yes.
Yeah. This is,
Sorry, there's one more point I was going to make. And then after playing the tin whistle, I sort of progressed to other flutes and whistles, especially from my own country. And that's where the connection became even stronger. Because the mandolin, it's not really a Czech instrument, it comes from Italy. And though there were some Czech mandolin orchestras, similar as there were in many European countries and in USA and Australia, Japan, and other places, but those played some sort of a popular music of that time, roughly about 100 years ago, and so. But they didn't really play the traditional folk music. But the wind instruments, like the overtone flute and the shepherd's flute and the big fujara from Slovakia, 6 feet tall flute, those are, and they are connected. So that's where my connection with the traditional music was even stronger.
Yeah, you even played a lot of those flutes during the concerts today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's how it was. I discovered my musical roots while living in the States.
But I think it's also my experience with also people living in exile, or what to say, that your roots and your heritage becomes important in that sense. I feel like we could stay in this for a long time. It's so interesting. However, I want to get to the point because as I mentioned, I haven't told, I mentioned to you, but not to the listeners, that the first time I met Radim was in 2005. I was visiting the Mandolin Symposium. You were one of the teachers, along with David Grisman, Mike Marshall, Evan Marshall, Don Stjernberg, Mike Compton. Maybe I forgot someone. I don't know.
Maybe Wayne Benson?
Wayne Benson was there,
and
yes.
Chris Steele showed up the last
Chris
day.
Steele showed up also.
Yes.
It was, for me, as a 24-year-old guy, it was the most amazing thing. And one of my big memories from this is also when you showed the Zenkl style of playing mandolin. I have never seen anything before, and I haven't seen anything like that since then either. Can you please tell us a little bit what is this? What is your specific style?
Well, I'll backtrack a little bit. Once I moved to United States, I was really focusing so much on the mandolin, and I was spending a lot of time with it. And I seeked out any opportunity to play the mandolin, and including playing on the streets, because even that was forbidden in the communist Czechoslovakia, because I guess there's no way to tax it, and there was no possibility of any enterprise or any business or private business kind of ownership or doing so. So I knew it from the movies that musicians would play on the street, and so it was exciting. So for the first 2 months, that's what I wanted to do, that's what I could. And of course, I would play solo, so I had to come up with the solo arrangements, and I was psyched. I had a lot of time on my hands, so I was working on different ways, playing chord melodies like. Chord melody is such a thing that we have a chord, and the melody note is the highest note, similar to the piano. And then I also wanted to include the, if possible, the mandolin signature technique, the tremolos, and then combine it somehow with the chords. And that sort of goes a little bit to the old Italian technique, so-called the duo style. And on my very first recording, which I did in '89, still in Czech Republic, it was on a cassette tape called Mandolin Parade, I learned and played a piece by Giuseppe Pettini. It's called Murmuring Brook, and it sounds like... So it's not that difficult, but it already sounds like two different voices. So that was inspiring, and then in the Bay Area I met Evan Marshall, and he's of course master of the so-called duo style technique, where not only that, but you can basically play in tremolo, and then do things on the adjacent string. You can play tremolo on a chord, or tremolo and other notes. But also, the more advanced technique is to be able to skip strings. So if you slow it down, it's like. And that's the mastery of Evan, and I'm glad that we got to meet, and he was very inspiring, and we got to play some concerts together in the 90s, where we would both play solo sets, and then we worked out a bunch of crazy arrangements together.
I love that style, because it almost sounds like there's two mandolins at the same time. Yes. So
and then I thought somehow it came to me. Well, what if I continue in this direction? And I guess thought, okay, what if I use 2 picks instead of 1, because it would give me more freedom, more variety. So originally I would tape the picks to my hands with a sticky tape, and they were kind of wiggly, but I could sort of do it. And later on I started using modified finger picks.
So we can see a little bit more.
Yeah. So. And then
so for the audio listeners here, Radim is now putting on like this finger picks, both to his thumb pick, and to his index finger. There's a little like finger pick there.
And the index finger is modified. It's more straight and shaped, filed into a point. So it's kind of like a pick. And then that's the one used for the tremolo. And then the thumb is free to do the accompaniment. So. And then, since it's 2 independent picks, the thumb can do more, so it could be more sort of a. So there's more independence of the voices. Even strumming with the thumb, like let's see. Or even 2 tremolos on non-adjacent strings, like.
Wow, that is. I'm feeling now this is a podcast episode, so the video that we're recording, it's not the best one, but there is a video also like available for members of the academy, our membership, where you can see what Radim is doing. But I also thinking at some point we gotta make sort of a true workshop where you can show this entire technique, because I think people are getting very interested by this right now.
Well, thank you.
But it sounds fantastic. So few things that we touched upon here that we could go deeper into, but also want to wrap up this the podcast episode. I think, as I said, we need more time to go into depth to all this. But if there is like one tip that you would give the listeners about how can we stay and nurture this innovative part of music and about finding our own style, not necessarily developing a totally new technique like you have done, but what is something like an advice for someone that feels like exploring their own kind of touch to playing the instrument?
I think my advice would be certainly if one is interested in learning some craft, but let's say more in particular the mandolin, learning the basics, really learning from multiple sources, especially the thing that you like, there's so many, great mandolin players, so many styles, and they're all good, but they are different, and so the person could feel more connected to some of those styles. So following that, copying, learning by copying, and even just combining their own favorite players kind of starts to nurture and develop the personal style, which is basically a combination of what was there before, and then giving it will be, I believe it will happen sort of naturally, after if the person is really motivated and keeps working on it and going with it, it will happen. And in a way, it's the adventurous mind. It's to me it feels more true to one being, and in a way it's basically even easier to play your own style than somebody else's style, right? Because it's more honest to you, and you feel more connected. It's more rewarding. Of course, it's certainly a good idea to be always connected to other music, especially the music of the masters. Like today at the church, we played a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach, the Goldberg Variation No. 1, and it's amazing because each time we sit down with Ondra and play it, I feel certain connection to the composer. It's like, because he's the man who wrote it. So Bach did put it together. So each time I play that phrase, I said, I'm somehow connected to him. So that is special. That's very enriching, or play the bluegrass, traditional fiddle tunes or the jazz standards. I mean, that's great. It's part. It will be, I think not enough to play just, my own style and this is, I don't even want it. The style kind of happens by itself, and then basically judging by the audience what's the more appropriate thing. If I play at a school that, for the kids, it's probably more appropriate to play, traditional country music, something which they can. But if we are here at the Bluegrass Festival where the audience knows the repertoire, it's perhaps more valuable to play our own music or things which they might not have heard, even though it's connected to bluegrass. But
it's a good advice. And I could really tell that that's the case because I heard 2 of your concerts here, and it was really obvious that you have chosen the repertoire that suited the situation and the audience for that part.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radim, for taking your time and recording this podcast. It's been a pleasure. So if people and listeners want to connect with you, where can they find some information?
Yes, absolutely. The best way is through my website. It's zenkl.com, or just Googling my name, and there's a way to contact me or ask things. And me and Ondra have a website, zenklkozak.com, and we have, YouTube channels with a lot of snippets from concerts and TV shows, and we will continue putting more education, educational materials on the website, and I have some tunes on my website as well. So that's the best way to.
Yeah, that's perfect. Zenkl.com. We make sure to include a link here in the description also. Yes. But,
and of course, the nowadays, social media, with Ondra Kozak, we have a Facebook and Instagram and stuff.
Perfect. Yes, so Radim, thank you so much for being here. Any last words you want to say to our listeners?
Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad there is interest in mandolin, which continues, and it's actually getting bigger, so...
Yes.
Let's keep on going.
Thank you very much. That's it, my friends. This has been really nice. And as I said, if you hear some noise here in the background, I think they are putting down the festival stage and all that. Right now, it's the last day of Torsåker Bluegrass Festival, and it's a very spontaneous kind of recording session, this. But yes, thank you so much everyone for listening, and until next time, I'm saying this to myself, to Radim, to everyone else out there listening. Always remember, be a music maker.